Good evening. I'm Rob Watt, and I'm calling the Public Safety Committee and Committee of the Whole to order. Present this evening are Council members Kara Christensen and Catherine Cotton, as well as staff. And with that, I will move on to the agenda approval. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilmember Cotton, seconded by Councilmember Christensen. Any corrections, additions to tonight's agenda?
Didn't see any.
Okay, so it's going to be a short one. All right, hearing that, we will accept the agenda as presented. Next, we open up for public comment this evening. If you happen to be here in person, you are welcome to come to the mic and talk on subject matters related to public safety. Seeing nobody is here unless some of the staff would like to come forward. People are always invited to send their comments directly to the city clerk or to each or any one of us to be included in the proceedings. With that, we will close the public comment section this evening. And now we move on. Good evening, Your Honor.
Good evening.
Mayor Ross is here. We'll approve the minutes presented. Is there a motion to approve?
Second. So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Christensen, seconded by Councilmember Cotton. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes presented? Hearing none, we will accept those minutes as approved. Next, I'm going to call on our acting chief, Captain Varsay, with tonight's discussion, Loaned Executive Management Assistance Program Study Update. Good evening, Captain.
Good evening. As y'all are aware, Chief ordered a LEMAP review, the Loaned Executive Management Assistance Program. Started this late last year, getting it scheduled and everything. We went through that process on the 6th and 7th of month. So it was a day and a half of them analyzing all of our processes, our policies, equipment, every function of the agency. That report takes approximately 65 days or 45 to 60 days for them to complete and get it back to us. That is in process right now. However, during this whole thing, there's 18 categories that they look at where they're analyzing the agency and what we're doing right, what we're doing, what we can do better on, and things that we need to fix, sooner than later, or that can take a while. Some of those, I'll just run through that list of 18 objects or items real quick. Goals and objectives, roles and authority, use of force, management, staffing, organization, and utilization of personnel, records management, information technology, unusual occurrences, health and safety, fiscal management, recruitment and selection, training, performance evaluations, code of conduct, internal affairs, patrol function, investigative function, evidence and property control function, and prisoner security. So those are the 18 categories that they came in and evaluated. Overall, the agency did really well. We didn't change a whole lot coming in. Our practices stayed the same. We let them see the way we've practiced and been practicing. It was one of the goals of the chief and I to let them see what we have so we have an honest assessment of where we're at and where we need to go. During the process, they interviewed officers and civilian personnel throughout the course of the day and a half. And one of the feedback items that we got was the openness of the officers and how accepting they were to things that, were going on and that, possible changes needed to happen. During the debrief, we had myself, the chief, the mayor and city administrator there, and they gave us some of the things that we need to start addressing a little sooner than later, while we wait on this report. They also explained to us that how the accreditation process goes, because this is a stepping stone to the accreditation process, where most of the time an accreditation process is 2 to 3 years and can take a little bit longer depending on the agency. They're estimating we can get it done in about 1.5 years. So with us being diligent and working on things, I think it's something that we can definitely accomplish. When we look at it, the chief and I broke down some of the areas of the main concerns that we know of right now and how we're going to move forward with it, and kind of giving us a time frame over it of how we want to finish it or what we want to start. Some of it is a little more in depth. Some of it is pretty easy to fix. There's a lot of policy review that we just, continually working on policy and making sure that that our policy is matching our practices and our practices are matching our policy. So that's one of the main topics that we're going to focus on. Our evidence is, so we have 4 categories really: evidence, policy, records, and a lot of it is administrative stuff with the policy, things like that. So that's kind of a 4th category for us, because that's the focus of the chief, myself, and our admin sergeant. The evidence room, we've got a few things to work on. When it comes to doing purges, inventories, things like that, those are already in progress. We're setting up a schedule of making sure we get a complete inventory done. I did the first audit just prior to this that has been done since the chief took over. The audit went well. Like I said, it's just more of an inventory. Part of the reason for getting an inventory done sooner than later is we do need to do a little bit of construction on the evidence room and make it more feasible and securable for the amount of items we have and the type of items that we have to take in now. The police department wasn't built with the current legislation in mind, 20 something years ago. So we have to make some changes there, and we've kind of already started the process with Public Works and getting, that started to bring to council and, go through that whole process. Continually updating the evidence policy, getting LT to some additional trainings just to keep him up to speed on current practices in the evidence. And you'll see that as kind of a reoccurring theme with even our records and doing, making sure we're doing purges, and, the laws change constantly, especially in the world of records and retention and things like that. We're working with IT on figuring out how the alarm system works down there. That's one of the things we have to work on. So that's one of those items that we were, marked on that, hey, we need to kind of work on that a little sooner than later. We have an alarm system, but apparently it was put in long before any of us were there, and we really just need to figure out how it works. Policy manuals, we're already working on that. Like I said, I've currently updating 4 policies that I have actively working on and making sure that we're doing best practices on that. Then as we roll into the records, it's updating our training manual for records, especially with now that we have a new records person on staff, making sure that policy is matching everything when our records retention and all that stuff goes. And one thing we have already checked off the box is making sure that our internal investigations and those files are not only moved down here, which was a standard practice, but only HR has access to those. That has already been completed. That was completed the day after. And then some of the other things that we're looking at is building or using a platform that we're kind of venturing out and looking more at software that can help us track our use of force better, our pursuits, and our any biasness issues and things like that. And there's software programs with companies such as Power DMS that we're looking at. Power DMS is required. They have an accreditation module, which is a required product for us to have to complete the accreditation process. So we started venturing into those. We had a meeting with them last week on what their software can do for us and how it'll work. And, you know, we're like I said, we're starting those stepping stones, those little ones that are easy for us to use. Yes.
The fire department also has Power DMS. If you guys ever have questions like on the fly type of a thing.
And that's and I'm very well aware of that. I've talked to Chief Bailey a couple times on that already. So it's one of those. It's a requirement from WASPIC and the fire commission for doing those. And there's a few more modules that we're looking at. Like I said, the use of force tracking. They have a field training officer for any of our field training. They have a module for that. So everything goes from paper to online, where it's a little easier to manage. Then they have a whole training module that we can not only track our training, but it helps us with requests and things like that from the officers to command staff on when they need it. So those are kind of some of the modules we're looking at.
Yeah, there's some things can be a little harder to upload.
Yes.
So
and there's different companies out there. Power DMS is the one that WASPIC contracts with. So they're the ones we have to use, at least for the accreditation module. The others can come from somewhere else, but we started with one meeting, did a Zoom meeting. It was me, the chief, Sergeant Weiss, and the IT director, because I want him to stay in the loop on what we're looking at. So we kind of started with the one, knowing that we have to go with the accreditation module from them. And just see what it is. I kind of have it a one-stop shop, possibly, if it makes it easier and it works for the city department. So I'm hoping that we can stay on track with the 18 months to become accredited. A lot of it just depends on how fast we can move on some of the policy reviews and just making our policy and our practices match each other and mirror each other. The chief is super excited. I can tell you that. He's more than thrilled about moving forward with this. I think all the officers are too. I know LT and Melinda and records and everything. They're eager to see how things change. And we were talking today about what our plan is going forward on getting the audit or the inventory done. That will allow us to do our complete audit and help us along the process once we get to the construction phase of, the internal construction phase. Any other questions?
Thank you. No, that's very encouraging, and it's something that I know the chief has been very passionate about. So I appreciate this process. I've got a couple questions. One is, when it comes to the budget, being that we're going into the biennial budget, do you have the resources that you need to do to handle most of this internally? Or are there certain components like IT that you think that the department needs more support?
I think based on my conversations with the IT director and even with Public Works on how things are going, I think the support is there. It's just a matter of putting the pieces of the puzzle together. The policy changes and some of the implementation, most of it is implementation on our end and just making sure that those practices are matching our policy. when we get to, you know, there's going to be some discussions about upgrading our cameras, which based on everything I've been told since I started here, that process was already started long before I started with the agency and with the city. So that is something that's already in the works, knowing that we have some deficiencies in for instance, our camera system. And I know that's already going forward. I think it's just a matter of just putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, presenting things to y'all where we're at and what and where the department needs to look forward.
I'm also curious, and I know it's kind of early because we've got another 60 or so days before the final report comes out. But I mean, foundationally, like the communication systems, were they comfortable in what we have, or is that something that, you know, may require a little deeper dive?
Are you like internal communication?
Yeah, well, no, just systems wise, IT wise.
So IT did come out for it. I gave them a call when they were ready. They came out. I think everything is like there. I don't see any disconnects with whether it's us, HR, finance. Everything is there. The communication part is there. It's just a matter of cleaning up things, you know, like as we were going through and they were sitting in my office talking to me about some of the things. They're like, oh, did you see this policy? Well, we had some policies that were doubled. A lot of it was just, it's a lot of cleanup for us. We're not expecting a whole, you know, I went through it in 2022 and I think the overall consensus was it was going to take a good 3 years to get us where we need to be in Enumclaw. Not only with the property room, but our records and, you know, just some of the patrol functions, things like making sure all the cars are equipped. And with certain items, one of the big items that they hit on is exposure control policies, protective equipment for officers, things like that. In some of those areas, we didn't perform as well, but in other areas we performed really well. Like everybody, for instance, our FTO program, they seem to be very happy with that. So it's one of those things that a lot of it's going to come out in the, you know, the detailed report, but based on the initial observations and what they told us, I think we're on track to move along a lot quicker than what we were anticipating. Because truly, I was anticipating the 3-year mark, but to shave that in half, and I think that's a huge step in the right direction. And I think has a lot to do with what the chief has done over the last several months since he took over.
Excellent. Well, it's always good to have an outside agency come in and look at the systems and
it is
see where the opportunities are.
To be honest, chief was kind of pulling me back a little bit. Like, hey, hold the reins, because when I came in, I'm like, hey, we need to fix this. We need to fix this. He's like, no, let it be what it is. So we already have some of the fixes in play or ready to go. It's just a matter of waiting until we get the full report to implement things that we're already preparing for. There's things that, like I said, I'm working on policies, and we've implemented different vehicle inspections to include different items that I saw immediately. We've been holding off to make sure that, you know, what we see in that report is what I also saw. And he's the same way. So it's communicating with IT and finance and public works is just going to be the huge part on our part, and everybody's open to it. I mean, I think the whole city's open to us moving this direction. It's just a matter of putting all those puzzles and pieces together.
Excellent. Councilmember Christensen.
Yeah,
do you have
thank
any questions?
So Captain Harishi, so what are the next steps then as we go through? It sounds like we'll be getting the report in 45 to 60 days. It sounds like there will be a punch list of items that we need to do. Will it be mostly submitting documentation to them? Will they be coming back to do additional interviews, make sure we've
So the next step is take that report and we're going to build a spreadsheet basically and go set our kind of goals and timeframes. Once we set those goals and timeframes, we'll start implementing those changes. Once we get that set, or probably even before we get a lot of it done, we are going to reach out about the accreditation process and getting that started. We will then be assigned a mentor. So LEMAP is the review, and it's a lot more strict than the actual accreditation process. We're given a mentor. They work with us through the process of accreditation. And then we will have our accreditation kind of a preliminary review to see where we're at and that we're going to make any final changes. Then we will move to that accreditation process. Then they'll come in and do another evaluation with the mentor and make sure everything's where it needs to be, kind of like what the fire department just went through. And then once we pass that process, we will, the conference that the chief is at right now, that's where we will be basically awarded our accreditation status. So that's kind of what the next 18 months is going to look like. I mean, there's going to be a lot of work in the middle to make, bring the policies up or bring the practices up, and then make any changes with, our storage space, things like that. But if I think the big run of it is just going to be, working towards some construction that we need to do. And once we get this report, there will be a lot more information to be able to present to y'all on that and what it's actually going to look like, because that's going to go into a lot more detail. And we kind of already have a good idea of what it is, which is why we've already reached out to Public Works to start that process. And then we can move forward with IT on cameras at the same time and different things like that. It's just a matter of making a few minor changes ultimately. I mean, property room is a big change, but for big grand scheme of things, it's pretty minor in comparison to some other places.
So, Councilmember Cotton.
Is the property room, is that going to be like a structural change, or
so
is
one
it
of the things
organization?
One of the things I can tell you is that's an easy one to kind of explain is the building was built with several roll-up doors. And I don't know if you've ever been out there, but we have the roll-up doors.
Yeah.
One of them goes into our property.
Oh, okay.
That has to come down and we have to wall it in. That process has already been started through bids and things like that. And that's just it's secure, but we need to make it more secure.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that needs to be done. And then through another one would be giving us more space for storage of firearms. With things where you see more court orders for surrendering firearms being out there, we are having the storage space we have is overflowing, and we just have to make some changes. So we're looking at taking an existing room and converting it into a firearm storage. In order to do that, we just have to move some doors around and things like that. It's not as, I would say, in depth as building a whole new space inside it. It's just doing some modification to the building. And you'll see a lot more detail written up about that in the evidence room portion of the report. But that was one of the bigger ones that I can say. Things like that are what we're going to be looking at doing. And based on early estimates, it's total maybe a 3-week project. It's not bad. It's just, we're trying to keep it as feasible as possible, obviously.
Is the accreditation process, is this also is this like a national or an international process?
No, this is a state process.
Just a state.
So,
okay.
The WASPIC is the one that does it. They're the governing agency. So, and that's where the chief is now at that conference. And so they set the guidelines for that. There's a whole manual on what the requirements are, things like that. And they come in and do that review. But, we'll get a mentor assigned to us who will help us through the process.
Is the mentor from WASPIC or from LEMAP?
So they're associated with WASPIC.
Okay.
They could be a commander or captain or chief from another agency that comes in that kind of does it on the side and comes in and helps. My former commander in Enumclaw does it on the side. He's also a LEMAP reviewer, but he is a mentor for accreditation. So, you know, one day I could be doing it if somebody needed help, just because I've gone through the process. It's always somebody who has gone through that process and knows what is required.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councilmember Christensen.
So assuming we're able to move through the process and we're end up being accredited, how long does that accreditation last?
I say it's every 3 years.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
And will it be similar to fire where there's ongoing additional responsibilities and things like that with reporting and other things?
So it's an ongoing process. That module that we get for the accreditation through Power DMS, we're constantly keeping up on it. It's one of the reasons like the admin sergeant position is kind of super important, because that's going to be his sole task, is staying up on that. So all of having the other modules, such as a training module, makes it easier for him to keep up with all the requirements so the reaccreditation process goes a lot faster, and more streamlined. You know, fire does the reaccreditation stuff, which they just did. I think our side of it probably goes a little quicker. You know, several agencies that are finishing theirs up, and it's a lot easier to do the reaccreditation once you get through this first initial part. We're doing the hard part right now.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments? Well done. Thank you very much, sir. All right, I am moving on. We have nothing else to come before us. I do have a short announcement, and for those that are curious or would like to join me, is the Regional Law, Safety, and Justice Committee meeting that I serve as one of 8 representatives on, meets Thursday morning. If you don't have a full schedule already, I'll add one more thing to your agenda. Captain, you may have an interest as well. It pertains to legislative overview from 2024 and the King County Prosecutor's Office data dashboard presentation. It happens at 7:30. Normally I do this in my North Bend office, but let me know if you're interested in having a link and joining in. We have a lot of law enforcement, of course, Superior Court and folks that are interested in everything that's going on from a King County perspective. And they're quite informative. I'll send the link over if you're interested in joining in. It's just, usually there are about 50 people on in the morning. So just know that it's more of a listening session. And then at 2:30, the SCA, the Sound Cities Association, the 8 of us that serve on it, we get together and then we kind of do a debrief, and then we bring up the topics for the next one that'll happen. I think it'll be September or so. So there's 7 times a year. So I'll send the link out and just let me know, Mayor, as well. I'm almost wondering, Mayor, could we do that from here? My conference room is already being
I'm gonna have to do
used.
from home.
From home?
That's
Okay,
fine.
let's do that. Okay, let's do that then.
But you could always come in.
Yeah.
Council chamber, just let us know. We will.
I think I'll just send the link out. Just let me know, and I'll send it to the committee members and to the chief and the captain to attend, and Mayor, I'll make sure that you have that as well. It's always good. I mean, the more that we do this together and the more that they hear from smaller communities like ours, because our challenges are far different than the larger cities, it has been very helpful, and it does make its way back onto the agenda of the King County Council, that sometimes these issues come up before. And otherwise, it also gives us an ability to work together a little more closely across the county interjurisdictionally. So with that, are there any other matters to come before us today? Hearing none, I will adjourn our meeting. Thank you very much.